have the original. That's the original you gave me. Keep it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, thanks for that.
Good morning. First of all, thank you very much. Okay, people are still in a conversation, which is okay. Good morning.
Good morning. We're all
I never said before to a group of Christians, be quiet. Because with the Jews, there's no way they will listen to you.
Have at it. Have at it. Just go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much for the all the things you prayed for and you thanked and you talked about my wife. She's definitely doing better, and I'm sorry I missed it, but I have a proposition for you. So the last official class is next week. What about going one more week and I can cover what we missed, okay? It's okay?
Yeah.
So 2 more weeks on Monday morning. There's nothing else to do in this
It's
city.
actually scheduled for another
The what?
week after that. It was scheduled for another week after that.
Was it?
Yeah.
No, wait a minute.
It was supposed
No,
to go
no.
to the 5th or something, wasn't it?
No, Corinne told me there's only one in the calendar.
Oh, okay, we'll go another week.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was planning on it.
Let me start in suggesting how appropriate is this article with what happens in America at this moment. I don't know what happened that I decided to start with this, but actually it helps us go through the difficult situation that exists now about the relationship that the administration has with strangers. I don't know if you are reading religiously Steve Miller. I love reading Steve Miller. He's such an idiot. And he's a Jew, so some of his conversation, and on Sunday morning he was on some stations explaining the policy of the administration, and he spoke about his Jewish education, which I think he missed all of it. I think he never attended Sunday morning classes in any temple in the world because he missed learning about the Exodus from Egypt. He missed about the fact that we were strangers in Egypt. He missed learning from the Passover Haggadah that in every generation one needs to see himself or herself as if she or he left Egypt. So the whole education in Sunday school, and he is a liberal Jew. I will put some asterisk next to the word Jew. It's just so hard to imagine how a person like this comes from Jewish home and profess absolutely some thoughts and ideas about what to do with immigrants that are completely removed. And this article still helps us to understand what we need to do with a stranger. And I decided to start with this, and we have other sessions planned for later in the year. I don't know exactly the dates. Chris will inform me one day about the rest of the sessions. But I think it was important to start with dealing with a stranger. And we're going to continue today, and we'll deal also with the stranger in ourselves. We have definitely parts of our lives that are completely strange to us. We don't know how we got there. We go through this. Sometimes we wake up after we go through it. We can't go over it. We can't get around it. We need to go through it. That's the only way to do those parts of our lives. But we end up in the end asking ourselves, what just happened? How many of us had this experience of going through a section of your life and then being puzzled about, how did I get here? What exactly happened? Sometimes we're lucky it happens for one day. Sometimes it can happen for a few years, where you feel completely estranged from the strangeness in the life that you just passed. What was this? Maybe I played a role of someone else. What am I doing here? You know, it happens. Anyone has some references to what I just said? Yes.
Well, I do, because my husband died about 2 years ago, and I was just sharing with Margaret how completely different and it's been, and it's almost an identity crisis, because I was with him for 37 years, and so it's like being untethered and wondering where do I land, and what now, and now I'm starting to feel like I'm putting my life back together in a different form, but it's been 2 years. It's been a 2-year journey, and going through it is a good way to put it, because there are times I've wanted to escape it, you know, fantasies like maybe I'll just move out of this house where there's no memories, etc., that kind of thing. But
thank you very much.
It's a good way for me to think about this. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other people that? Yes.
I was in a 20-year marriage where I had a lot of beautiful, good things and birth of my children and all that kind of stuff. But I really came to realize that I wasn't me. And I had to leave the marriage to become me. And
It's working?
pardon?
It's working?
The 40 years after that have been the greatest gift in my life. And I can't damn or think negatively about the other, but it wasn't, it needed to change.
And you did it.
And I remember hanging on to the stove handle of the door because he asked me to remarry him because it would have been simpler. And I had somewhere I got the courage to say, no, that wouldn't be honest. And I moved forward. And he's happy now, and we're friends, and it's all worked out. But there was that realization I wasn't me.
There is a story in Jewish tradition about a rabbi being confronted by a Roman matron when Rome was ruling over the land of Israel. And she asked the rabbi, what has God been doing from creation? What is he doing? He created the world. What is his business now? And the rabbi said, he arranges marriages. That's why we have, by the way, maybe you never ask yourself the question, why do we have a pupik in the middle of our belly? You know that strange item that we have on our belly? Some of us have it in, some of us have it out. This is what God does. When babies are born, he says, he or she, it's she. Yeah. God cannot be male. Cannot. But God says, this one will marry this one, and every time that's how the pupik in the middle is created. But sometimes he misses. Sometimes the marriage is not exactly what it's supposed to be. And that's okay to take your own steps and to figure out and to reject maybe God's notion about the matching. In the Jewish tradition, in the Talmud especially, You have a lot of those kind of stories. Constantly Judaism being confronted by pagan religions or pagan observances, and constantly challenging Jewish assumptions and Jewish teachings. So every time you see a Roman matron, it can be completely a question that the rabbi asks himself, but he's using the Roman matron as the one to challenge him. It sounds a lot more exciting. Another story which I use sometimes at weddings, Chris. The story is about, again, a Roman matron confronting a rabbi and saying to the rabbi, "Your God is a thief." The rabbi was astonished. "What do you mean, a thief?" "Yes, he puts Adam to sleep and then steals the rib from Adam and creates a woman instead." You remember that story? It's early in Genesis, very early in Genesis. And so the rabbi was actually dumbfounded, didn't know how to respond. But the rabbi had a daughter that says, "Last night thieves came to our house and they stole all our silver vessels." "Oh my God," said the Roman matron, "I will send the guards to chase them." "No, no," said the daughter. "They stole the silver vessels and replaced them with gold vessels." Aha. He took, or she took a rib that doesn't have any value and instead created the woman, the gold vessel. It works very well in wedding ceremonies. We have one coming, so. Yeah. Actually, the two of us, it will be the first time for both of us. As a result of the Tri-Faith initiative, we're going to officiate in the wedding of a Jew and a Christian for the first time. It will be definitely the first time for me, and definitely working with Chris. Who can ask for a better partner than Chris for that? You're not invited, but the wedding will take place. Okay.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Sometimes I think too that being a stranger to yourself can be very brief. Like, how many times do we say to ourselves, "I can't believe I just said that," or "I can't believe I even did that. I can't believe I got through that."
It's not me.
It's like that was not me.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. This is the stranger inside of us. So many aspects to what strange can be. I want to continue in the middle of page 38. We covered some Jewish characters, Josephus, Spinoza, Philo, people that struggled with their existence as Jews. So Elie Wiesel asked the question, so what went wrong with those people? What was the difficulty of those people? Who would like to start reading? Yes, please.
What went wrong? They resisted poorly the stranger's temptations. They forgot that we are supposed and indeed commanded to love the stranger as long as he fulfills his role, meaning as long as his mystery challenges our certainties and forces us to re-examine our own values, our own sincerity, as long as the stranger represents the question. But if and when he attempts to force his answers upon us, he must be opposed. He can be of help only as a stranger, lest you are ready to become his caricature and your own. The virtue of the ger is that he remains ger. Although he may have become Jewish in all aspects, he retains his superior quality of ger
Tzedek.
For 10 generations. We would not deprive him of that which made the stranger in him become our brother.
So, what is the issue here? What is the role of the stranger in the relationship that he or she will create with us?
Challenge his thinking.
Challenge our thinking, our assumptions. What else? Yes,
Challenges his own thinking.
his own thinking,
Strangers.
the stranger, because he's in a relationship with us.
That's right.
Yeah. Which is exactly why this idea of the Tri-Faith Initiative is so amazing. I mean, this is what's happening to members of Temple Israel. And some of them, it's happening to them, and they don't want to admit that it's happening to them. But it's amazing to go into conversation with some of my past members. Past. They're not my members anymore. No, I'm just kidding. But they, people that were opposed completely to the ability to create something like this, now are the biggest defenders. So I sometimes say, what's wrong with you? What happened? What? I liked you when you opposed and you rejected. What happened to you? And it's happening to people in this church, and definitely it's happening to some of the Muslims that we encounter. It's opening windows to a different kind of existence, different life, different relationship. And I think that's what's so beautiful. I came here yesterday for the revival. Oh, yesterday it was Saturday. Yeah, it was interesting. People ask me, what are you doing here? I never experienced a revival in my life. I came to be revived. And there was such great music in this room. Was fabulous. But I think that's what needs to happen. We need to visit each other places and experience whatever they offer. And also be critical. You know, we all have issues. Who are actually the only one that have rights to this land are people living in casinos.
Who wear the t-shirts that say, now you don't believe in immigration?
You have a new business.
Yeah.
No, they have
Oh,
these
they have it
t-shirts,
already?
oh yes.
I love it. The money should go to the local people, native people. Continue. Among strangers.
Okay. Even with people very different from himself, he was really there with them, as was Joseph in Egypt, who claims, Higer Haiti
Be'eretz
Nokri.
Nochria. Joseph.
Yeah.
Remember Joseph? So he names his child Gershon. Joseph had 2 children. And he had a little attempt. Again, he was blamed for raping Potiphar's wife. Do you remember the story? He was sold to Egypt by his brothers, to an Egyptian caravan. And he names the child Ger Aiti Beres Nochria. I was a stranger, I was a ger in a foreign land. That's how he names his son Gershom. I was a ger there. Gone. Even among Nochrim.
Even among Nokrim, the Jew remains a ger.
Yeah. So a Jew in the midst of people who are sometimes hostile still remains a ger. Continue.
A Jew may not be a Nokri to anyone, meaning he may not use his Jewishness to attack, to humiliate, to deny anyone else.
Yeah. So we are not able to afford being a Nochri. We need to continue being ger, someone who moves toward a community that he dwells in its midst. That's why, for example, it's forbidden for a Jew to go to someone who converted to Judaism and say, oh, I can still see pork between your teeth. We have some evil people that do those kind of things sometimes, reminding, because the person who, for example, convert, he gets automatically the patriarchs as a matriarchs as his ancestors. So a person who converts receives the whole exciting Jewish history upon themselves. And so you can't go to anyone and offend them or demean them. So we need to become and be gers wherever we live. And by the way, most of Jewish history is written where? Not in the land of Israel, the state of Israel, which is only a 7 years creation. That's all, 70 years. Most of our lives we spend as Jews trying to assimilate in whatever we lived. That's how we have so much experience of other cultures. That's why Judaism, that's why sometimes the only dogma that Judaism has is that it doesn't have dogmas. It's very hard sometimes to answer a question. Tell me what Judaism says about Kabbalah, or about miracles, or about justice. Well, it depends where exactly you're asking it, in what land, what period of time. You cannot define Judaism overall. The only thing that you can say is that there is God and we believe in God. Not all Jews. There are some Jews that don't believe in God. Oh, you give out. But because of this experience of living in so many lands, we took hopefully only the gifts from each of the land and each of the societies. Can you imagine this experience to be a wandering Jew? Which I'm so happy there's a plant that is named a wandering Jew. Why can't they have a plant that says a resident alien? But that's how we are. I think it was an amazing gift, although it was accompanied with suffering. But by and large, when I look now at my Jewish history, I'm so proud and so happy that I was able to be in all those lands, because I gained something from this assimilation. Hopefully only the positive things. But look where we were. I mean, you can look at trace Jewish history and see some of us are tired from the wandering. Some of us feel that we were actually not extinguished because we moved in different lands. Some of us are worried at this moment if Iran is going to bomb Israel, and most of the Jews there are going to be annihilated. So maybe it's not a bad idea to live in different lands. And this was maybe the mission to the Jew, by becoming people that can share the issue, the witness of God. Why do you think evangelical loves us? We are loved by evangelical Christians. Why? Why are we loved by evangelical Christians?
Second coming.
Second coming, they would like us to stay in Israel to protect ourselves, because when he comes, we can identify him. We are the only people that can identify Jesus in the second coming, because he's going to eat a bagel that day. So we'll see what he eats, and yes, that's the one.
Oh my God.
Why do you think Trump is mentioning constantly those 4 women, and that some of them said things that were anti-Semitic? I mean, his crowd is evangelical Christians. He needs to continue harping on this to make them part of his camp. He's very shrewd. Everything he says has a purpose. He doesn't say anything out of thin air. Everything is calculated very carefully. And it's true, one of them expressed some anti-Semitic views. One of the 4. Okay, can I live with this? Well, it's hard. I didn't like when she said it. He said that she said a lot of other things that she never said. But there was definitely a piece there that was hard for me as a Jew to accept. But you know what? She is a lot more than just that sentence. And so we have difficulty sometimes with Jews of hearing only anti-Semitic things and identifying them and not pay attention to anything else. Maybe it's time for us to grow up and not constantly use the Holocaust as a reason to be loved by all of you. That was a complicated sentence. Maybe there was, hello? Someone doesn't want me to teach. Hello? It's okay. I'll just use my voice. Although this is nice, maybe it will start working someday. I think we Jews, this is my critique of my people. You cannot be a Jew without criticizing your own people. That's what makes it a healthy community. Are you guys allowed to criticize Christianity?
Oh.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more maturity emerging from this. If you can also look at your faith and complain, kvetch about this. You know what kvetch is? It's such a wonderful Yiddish word. Kvetching. Kvetching is when someone constantly complains. Kvetching. Kvetch, kvetch, kvetch. It's a great word. Please buy for yourself Leo Rothstein book, The Joy of Yiddish. You'll be able to understand all the Jewish comedians a lot easier. One of the things that we're obsessed about still is this Holocaust. The Holocaust is a burden we carry. I'm not suggesting to forget about it, but I think it's enough already. It's enough the dwelling with the atrocity of the Nazis. By the way, whoa! Thank you, God. By the way, there are other atrocities that happened since the Holocaust that we completely ignore. We don't talk about this. I agree that sometimes I rejected the usage of concentration camp in the beginning of dealing with the immigrants. But then I saw those pictures from there. And I realized that maybe concentration camp is a good word to use, knowing that it's still without the gas chambers, and hopefully this will never happen. Although, who knows if he loses the election, what can happen in America? It's something we need to prepare ourselves. Yes?
Earlier I mentioned to you that I'm reading a book which is entitled A Library Book. One chapter the author devotes to book burnings in Germany leading up to World War II. In one passage she describes the spectacle of destroying books was particularly excruciating for Jews who have been known as the people of the book. And she goes on to say, Jews believe books are more than just printed documents. They believe books have a kind of humanity and a soul. And she also makes reference to the Torah.
Yeah.
Would you expand on that notion?
Yeah, I mean, that's how the different groups of people wanted to obliterate Jews. Not only destroying, they knew the value of the Torah for the Jew. The Nazis were absolutely clear understanding the role of the Torah. That's why they burned all the synagogues in Kristallnacht. There was one night in 1939 where they went to all the synagogues in all those villages and burned all of the synagogues with the Torah in them. So we have at Temple Israel, in the chapel, we have a Torah that was smuggled from Czechoslovakia, next to a Torah that is modern day, written by a scribe. And when we open the ark, we are constantly have the memory of what happened in those lands. So I don't know if you remember, there was an exhibit in Washington about the legacy of Judaism. There were all the Torahs that were saved from Europe, that were hidden after the Holocaust, and then were given to America. Every congregation, every Jewish congregation in America has one Torah that was rescued from Europe. The reason why they're all here is because there were no synagogue or communities left. So there was nothing to do with the Torah. And we don't want Torah to be just a museum piece that you go and admire. That's not the purpose of the Torah. The Torah is a book that you have a conversation with constantly. Every week, we read a chapter from the Torah and we interpret it. It's a living witness to who we are. And that's what they do, burning books. But they were never able to destroy us. Yes?
I read a book last year. It was about the Belgian King Leopold. And it's a recent book by a professor at Berkeley, California. Hochschild is his name. And it was about the whole Holocaust in the Congo back in the 1800s.
By Belgians.
Belgium King
Yeah.
Leopold and his guys.
Yeah?
That's a Holocaust.
Yeah, I'm willing, I don't want anymore to keep that word just for myself. Holocaust belongs to all of us. All of us. We need to identify, I mean, that's the lesson of the Holocaust. Never to be able to do something similar. But then we repeat this all the time. What was Kosovo? Kosovo was a Holocaust. What was Rwanda? I mean, you have those constantly examples. And I think it's time for the Jew to allow that word to be shared. You're going to find some members of Temple Israel that will never want to share it. It's mine. It's my misery. Why would I share it with anyone else? Let me continue hugging that misery. I'm not mocking anyone. I'm just suggesting that it's time for us to move on. To move on and to be able to share it with other people, especially when we are witnessing to those destructions of communities. Not all of my people will agree with this, but who cares? Okay, you want to continue or should I select someone else? You're okay? Okay, continue.
But a Jew can belong to the third category. The worst of all, a Jew can be a czar.
A czar. Czar. Now comes another word that he is introducing, czar. Listen to the czar. What is czar? Continue.
Czar too means stranger, and his lot in scripture is worse than the other two.
So what do we have? We have the ger. We learn about the ger. We learn about the nochri. And now comes the third category, czar. Okay?
We are told to love the ger and be kind and generous to the nokri. God shields even the nokri. God offers him protection, not so the czar. Who is a czar? Originally, the term applied to those ordinary Jews who are kept outside the temple structure. Then the prophets used it to describe the profane, the alien, the destructive elements in our midst. Czar is a Jew who remains a stranger.
Part of the relationship agreement that we all signed when we came here. And I think this is something that is okay until what? What is the difficulty then? What happened to those people at the end?
They lost their own identity.
It was oppressive. The stranger offered some oppressive ideas. And the stranger had also some enticing ways to bring them into their camp. They stopped being who they were supposed to be. Now, is it bad? I think Elie laments what really happened to them. So there's a place where you need to be strong in the ideas you have and resolute with them. You have to be careful. And I think it'll be important. None of us is planning to convert anyone here. Are you kidding? It's so much work. But it'll be interesting to see how this church still believes in the ideas, the ideology, the faith, without being threatened by relationship to the synagogue or to the mosque. It'll be interesting to watch. This is such an exciting experiment that I hope all of us will live till 120 to be able to experience. You know why 120? Why is the blessing? So a Jew blesses someone on their birthday, may you live till 120. Why? Moses died at 120. So that's how we bless each other when we see each other. In addition to the cake, we say, may you live till 120. With all your pains and pills and everything else. Crazy. Okay, let's. Yes.
We say challenge, but doesn't it also make us broader for our own?
What?
It makes God bigger for me.
God is enormous. Yeah.
But when I moved out of just Christianity and started understanding and appreciating the bigger picture, it seems like it made it bigger for me than it ever has been.
God is enormous. God is huge. God is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah. Even when you say the word bigger, you already are limiting God. Any kind of words you use to describe God will limit God, because there are no words to pronounce, really. We spend so much time talking about God as if He cares what we say about Him. I think we have sometimes a challenge. I think anytime we talk about God, we make Him smaller. Yes?
A cousin of mine recently said to me, and she says she's an atheist, and that's okay, I say to her. And she says, you Christians, your God is too rigid for me. And that's why I call myself an atheist. And I thought, wow, our God is too small. Wow.
You know, good for her.
Yeah, she's thinking.
Good for her. She's thinking, she's rejecting, she's incorporating all those kind of things.
Yeah.
So, did you define the God that you believe in when she said it?
Say that again?
Did you defend your position about God?
No, I did not.
Why? It's
Because
so tasty to
I believe-
challenge. What?
Well, I just believe that we have too much rigidity in our heads about God. So I'm kind of cleaning houses too.
You're cleaning house.
Cleaning house, yeah.
Inside your brain.
Yeah.
Chris, what is your answer to a person who thinks that there is a lot of rigidity in Christianity?
They need to join the conversation and broaden.
Join the conversation.
Yeah. So is there a place in the church where there's a conversation about God, the rigidity of God? Or?
I hope so. I would say everywhere. Yeah, that is what we're trying to do here, is trying to pinpoint a kind of a relationship that each of us can have a conversation individually and communally with God, trying to participate in what God's already doing. So what we do does not stop God from creating, but what we do responds to that creation of God in a way that helps us participate in
Wonderful.
So however they do that, even as an agnostic or atheist or whatever, if they come in and bring their revelation, they've expanded our vision of God. Because it's always the stranger that brings to us something we didn't know about God.
In a way, every stranger is Abraham.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought about changing from tri-faith to Abraham's village. What if we call this Abraham's village?
Well, then what are you going to do with Sarah and Hagar?
Yeah, good question. But Sarah is not mentioned at all when we talk about Abraham now, because you know, by the way, that after she died, after Sarah died, in Jewish tradition, he married Hagar, the one he sent away. It's so beautiful. I love that. She died and she came to comfort him. Hagar. No one talks about this, but it's in our tradition.
Is it in the Muslim tradition?
After Sarah, he went no. But she's there. She's very active in the Muslim tradition, Hagar. And in those days, people married more than one. So. Let's continue. A new reader, please. Now, page 39.
Now, what about the second category, the Nochri?
Nochri.
Nochri.
Nochri. Remember, Ger, Nochri. Why is there another word for stranger? Nochri. Now, he will explain. Go on.
He clearly ranks below the Ger. He remains actively on the outside, and there is something negative about his remaining on the outside. We are told to love the Ger, but no mention is made about love for the Nochri. On the contrary, we underline their differences so as to discriminate between them. We are allowed to lend money with interest to the Nochri, but not to the Ger. Ritually impure meat may be given to the Ger, but must be sold to the Nochri. Why this distinction? Both terms mean stranger, but while the Ger indicates a movement and impulse towards the Jew, Nochri indicates the opposite, a movement away from the Jew.
Okay, so Ger and Nochri. So those are words that Abraham is using in introducing himself to the kings of that land at that time. So what's the difference between a Ger and a Nochri? Again, what is the difference between those two terms? He says Ger is moving toward what? Toward understanding the community, the Jewish community. There's some kind of a movement, some appreciation that happens with the Ger. Nochri stays on the outside. He looks sometimes with disdain about the Jew. Continue.
Nochri stems from the word
Nechar.
nechar.
CH is always ch. There's no other way. We Jews have in Hebrew so much ch. We are exhausted after finishing a conversation. So CH stands for ch. Go on.
Abroad elsewhere. By extension, the hipel,
That's the verb. Go on.
it reads
Leid naker. Leid naker.
which means to deny, to remove oneself from the community, to alienate oneself from the family or group. While the Leid ger means the opposite, to come closer, to join, to convert.
So two words, worlds apart. Nochri is the one that doesn't really want to be part of the community. That person stands on the outside and look in a way into the community with a whole different kind of feelings. Leid Gayer, Ger is someone who is moving toward some kind of resolution about themselves. Please continue.
There is something in the term Nochri which implies a will, a deliberate plan to be estranged. A Nochri is he who uses his status as a stranger to oppose you, to oppress you, to rule over you.
And this is what's happening now in the way immigration is being defined. They're not interested in learning English. They're just speaking in their language, and they are not going to be able to assimilate into our community. I mean, so the way some of those immigrants are being treated is as nochri, as outsiders, that are not interested, that are coming here to contaminate what we have here. Hello? I think the battery died. Is someone monitoring my conversation? Well, I'll just raise my voice.
Rabbi, I'll take that upstairs. Chris is gone to be with my Rabbi Star.
No, but there's still there is still some light. Yeah, it's not working.
I'll see what they can do up there.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much.
Okay. My stronger voice, okay? Can you hear me? My mother told me that I was born with a microphone in my mouth. Yes.
So I have a quick question. I had to go back to page 28 and look up the terms again. And so what I want to understand is, on page 39, you talk about the military being more oppressive, but then on page 28, Elding talks about the military being aloof and separated, but still friendly. So how do we reconcile those two views?
He's talking about when it's not really going that way, when the nochri stays nochri, outsider. And I think the conversation about immigration, by the way, that will be the topic of the next election, you know that. It's already being built. But definitely there is an approach in America by the governing forces to introduce the people who are coming from South America as nochri. They are the rapists. That's how he started, remember? The first thing he said, they are going to rape us, they're going to steal. This is definitely already putting them as nochri, as someone that will never make it inside. They will never succeed. And they are coming to take our jobs. What jobs? How many white Americans are lining up to milk cows in Iowa?
Or put
Work
on
in
new
the packing
roofs.
plants.
What?
Or work in the packing plants.
Yeah, packing place. Yeah, where are those white Americans?
Or in the hot fields, or in the nursing homes.
Mysterious voices enter into the room. Okay. Let's continue, please. Please continue.
Okay. Well, a ger, at least in scripture, is nothing but an alien resident, one who came from far away to share your joys and sorrows. The nochri has come on a temporary basis. Tomorrow he may leave with his prey. He has always been and will continue to be attached to another home, another system. Even when he is with you, he is elsewhere.
Yeah. So, I heard your voice all the way from the office.
Oh, did you, when they turned it on? Oh, funny.
So what happened?
Batteries.
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
What is the difference now between, after reading this paragraph, what is the difference between the ger and the nochri? Why can we look at the people who are coming as gerim, not as nochri? It's all in the language. Similar to the use of socialism now. What is social security if not pure socialism? Pay attention to the words they're using. Continue.
Hence the term used by Abraham. How would you like to say that?
Well, first of all, you can say it.
Ger betoshav ani
Imachem. Imachem. Abraham says, ger v'toshav, I am a ger and toshav, ani imachem, I am with you. He comes to Canaan and tells the local natives that I'm coming here to be a ger v'toshav. Toshav means resident. I'm a resident alien. That's what he says. But he uses the word ger, which means what? I'm willing to be part of this community. I'm with you. Ani means I. Imachem, I am with you. That's what he says. He left his idol workshop that he had with his father, selling idols, moves to a land and says, I am with you. I think we hear similar voices now coming from immigrants. Why aren't we trusting them that that's what they want to do? Not all of them are killers and rapists.
Well, a lot of it is we won't even bring in our own history. When all of the whites came, they were the no-creek, and they didn't want any of the people who lived there.
Totally. And we know what they did to
Wiped
some.
them out. They killed most of them.
Yeah.
And we don't hear that in the dialogue.
Of course not. Why would you hear it in a dialogue? America the Great, yeah.
To other Jews and to the Jew in himself. The term implies religious and metaphysical opposition to his own identity. A Jew who loathes his Jewishness is a czar, the worst of enemies. That is why most injunctions against the czar are extremely severe. He may not eat from priestly sacrificial offerings. They are so scared that he may not even come close. Too dangerous. A czar, the destructive stranger, uses his faith as a weapon, a faith that is not really his own. He has taken it from others. That is why whatever he does becomes idolatry.
Avodah Zarah. So idolatry in Hebrew is Avodah Zarah. Zar. Go on.
Others use him to make us become strangers to ourselves.
So what do you think about that category? We have those. You have this in your faith too. People who claim to be Christians but are constantly rejecting, or those are people that you're embarrassed from. People that seem to be in your camp, but then suddenly they open their mouth and they're not you, they're not representing you. They will try to do it. But you have those self-hating people in our midst in every faith. And they bring a lot of damage to all of us, to the community at large. That's why they need to be kept away, aside. Continue.
The term czar is therefore totally, inevitably derogatory.
Machshavot zarot. Machshava is thinking, thoughts. Strange thought. Go on. Unholy thought.
Unholy thoughts must be discarded, uprooted. Aaron's two sons perished because they introduced Esh-Zara.
Esh-Zara. You remember the story with Aaron? Aaron has two children, and they were consumed by fire. Esh-Zara, Zar, again Zar, because they broke the ritual while being intoxicated. You cannot bring offerings to God as priests when you are also drunk. That's why none of us drinks before services. You have to have, the worst is when you have a couple in front of you and they are taking pictures for the last 5 hours and they drank. And I asked them to repeat holy words under the canopy for the wedding. And they cannot pronounce it because they're drunk. So I always tell people, drink water, please, because you have to repeat one of the most holiest sentences in matrimony. With this ring, you are my husband or my wife, according to the law of Moses and the people of Israel. You can't be drunk when you say that. You have to understand the commitment of what this vow that you are taking. No one is allowed to take vows while intoxicated. We learn this from what happened to the sons of Aaron. Go on.
When God expresses his dissatisfaction, his disgust with certain human actions, he says why. They are Lazarali, they are all alien to me, meaning they repel me, they anger me.
Yeah, it's not against us, it's against God. They stand in opposition to God, to God's ideas, God's values, what we learn from God. Go on.
Why such hostility toward this kind of stranger? The answer is self-evident. He represents danger to man in general and the Jew in particular. For there are many ways to live as strangers, and they are not all alike. First of all, I could be a stranger toward strangers, which is natural, and I would even add healthy. It may be unpleasant, painful, and absurd, or not, to find oneself face to face with someone one has never seen, and knowing that the relationship is one of strangers whom fate has brought together for one moment, one encounter, one journey. A word, a gesture, a desire, and the moment is forgotten.
Wow. How many strangers we meet every day? What do we do in those encounters? I mean, it is possible today, when you leave this place, you'll encounter 12 other people. What happens in those encounters? How do you use those encounters to benefit you and definitely benefit the person that you are encountering? He is not a czar yet. You guys...
You can smile, you can say hello, you can be welcoming, even
Yeah.
if you just are passing.
You can give someone a compliment, just even if you encounter them for a minute. What a gift you gave me. But sometimes we stay completely removed from there. We're not interested. I'm going to meet 12 people, I don't give a shit about anyone. Really? What are the losses? Now it's clear. The connection between shit and God is clear. Sorry. Hello? Okay. It'll take some time for God to forgive. Think about this opportunity. 12 people you're going to meet today. What are you going to do with each of them? Are you going to be a ger, a nochri, or a zar? You have three options in the way you're going to handle that encounter. Don't forget that there are other people that are holding some of the pieces to your puzzle. It is possible today, one of the people you're going to meet from the 12 people carries a piece that will shed light on who you are. Wow. It's exciting. Can you imagine finding people because, they're there? Must be a reason why they're there. Hopefully not all of them are doctors because you're feeling good and healthy. And doctors cannot offer a lot of pieces to our puzzle anyway. Just kidding. But this knowledge to wake up in the morning and to look at your life and you say, oh my God, it will be an exciting day. I'm going to meet some people. Even for a minute, even for a second, something can happen there. If you're willing for that to happen. If you're open for that. Okay, so continue.
Or then again, I could conceivably be a stranger to a friend, a colleague, a fellow writer, even a brother. Cain and Abel were not enemies, they were strangers, which is worse. To reject a friend or be rejected by him is painful. Here I am, there he is, and I thought we belonged to the same intimate circle, that we were allies, bound by the same utopian dreams, projects, and discoveries. And suddenly I discover a stranger. I thought I could count on him or her. I thought I counted for him or her. Wrong. And then I see the stranger in him, it means also that I am a stranger to him. Worse, the stranger in him may very likely be me.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Can you repeat the last sentence again?
Worse, the stranger in him may very likely be me.
Wow. Isn't life complicated? That's how we need psychiatrists. Yes?
I would say not a psychiatrist, an analyst.
Analyst.
Only because I don't think it's a physical illness, I think it is the problem of the unconscious. And we're not aware of our unconscious that so often compels us.
We definitely had friends in our lives that we felt that the piece in them that was the solid foundation of our friendship is gone. How many people lost friends? Was there ever a time when you blamed yourself for that? Yeah, good. Many times we just, it's his fault. Really? Maybe that piece that was you in him disappeared. It's not there anymore. What did you do to eliminate you from him or from her? This is what life is. Life is all about relationships. There's nothing else in this incredible, stupid life. I mean, when you think about this, what is life? You're born and you die. There's a poem about the line between, in the grave sites. It has the year of birth and the year of death. What is the most important there? No one knows the poem? The dash. It's all about the dash in our lives. What do we do with the dash? And basically the dash is all about friendships and relationships. There's nothing else. Life by itself doesn't make sense. The dash, the relationship, those are the things that makes life called life. Continue.
This is serious, but there is something even more serious, to realize that I am a stranger to myself, which means to realize that there is a stranger in me, someone who wants to say yes or no in my place, who wants to live my life or my death, or even to die by pushing me to my death through self-hate, self-disgust. A stranger who forces me to look at things and events and at myself with his eyes, urging me to give up because of him and not me, imploring death with his voice to come soon. He wants to be he before ceasing to be at all.
Was there a time when you felt similar feelings like the one he describes? When you feel estranged from yourself? Similar to, what am I saying? You know, what you said before. You know, what is a famous saying about loving the other? You have to have some love for yourself. You have to, I don't think people are capable of loving others without loving themselves, but loving themselves to some kind of a limitation. I mean, narcissistic is not the way to do it. He's so great. Everything he does, there are millions of people listening to him. That inauguration, oh my God, there was such a large crowd. It was, they came to listen to me. It's all about me. He's all about himself. I don't think he ever spent time thinking about who he is. And he's married to a woman that never said anything. I don't know how she lives. I feel sorry for her, actually. Yeah, all of us should feel sorry about her. Okay, continue.
One must never allow oneself to become this kind of stranger to anybody. During the era of knife and flame, the executioner wanted not only to kill us as strangers, anonymously, but as numbers, as objects, not as human beings. He wanted to kill us twice, to kill the humanity in us before killing us.
Of course, he relates to his own experience in the camps, in the Holocaust. I mean, look at what they did. It was brilliant on the part of the Nazis. Besides having trains come on time. They still do, by the way. It's very strange to be in a train in Germany and you travel around and you hear the noise of the train. Any kind of train. So you're immediately brought in your mind to that period of trains running on time. But the way they moved the Jews from the city into a ghetto, then from the ghetto to the camp, and then giving everyone numbers. Numbers. You are nothing but a number. You don't have an identity. You don't have a name. You have a number. That's how we distinguish who you are. And then, of course, gas chambers, and then ashes. Ashes are the worst part. That's what left. And then they take the ashes and spread them over the fields, the beautiful European snowy fields, to the air. That's part of the difficulty that Jews have with cremation. There is still a feeling in a Jew about cremation that comes from what they did to us. To us. I wasn't there. To us. That's how we view our history. We are not only a product of the history, we are active in the history. We are there, even if I wasn't there. That's how we teach history, Jewish history. Because we believe that the story of creation is still unfolding. You think God really sits on his ass, and contemplates his navel? I mean, God is still active in history. That's how we feel about God. Yeah.
I took a history class once where the teacher read from a slaveholder's diary. He had sold this female slave's children, all of them, and she became so depressed that she couldn't work. She just became immobile, and his writing, I mean, it was so clear that he could not figure out what was wrong with her because he didn't really see her as a human being. He couldn't personalize what he had done. You know, she wasn't a human being. So we have these things in our history too. That's one of our Holocausts, is slavery, the millions of Native Americans. I mean, 98% of, there were millions and millions of Native Americans. 98% were wiped out by disease and the genocide and the whole thing. So we have that history here too, that I mean, I was so struck by that she read to us. It was like, oh, this isn't even a human being. What's wrong with her? You know, talk about stranger. It's